Welcome to another episode of the Resilient Riches podcast. When we look at resilience, we typically look at somebody who's made success and has gone through obstacles to get there. Today's guest, Robin Lubin, is going through the obstacles of life, is going through some of the most challenging times in life that her daughter actually sacrificed her life for the state of Israel and for the Jewish homeland. Robin, we really appreciate you coming. First, before we get started, we really want to send our deepest condolences to you, your family, and we really appreciate what you're doing. Many times, the people have gone through this tremendous loss and they're not speaking about it. You've come forward, you're talking about it, and there are a lot of parents of lone soldiers that are really, really scared. And their kids are fighting this war, and they don't know what's going on, and they don't know what's happening. But I think you're going to be a symbol of strength to lone soldier parents and lone soldier families around the world. So we really appreciate what you're doing. My dad was talking for a second before about seeing your daughter's song.
I think we saw your daughter being recorded just like the Shabbos before, and somebody had posted it on one of the WhatsApp group, and I saw your daughter singing, and she had some, I don't know, it was a song, I don't remember the song itself, but you really got a personal connection with her. That's just a couple of days before, just I think some random video. So it was really, really incredible that all of a sudden, that she's no longer with us.
And I feel like when I saw this, it was all the lone soldiers are connected. The people who've served we're all connected, and we're a small family, and we all felt a part of ourselves, and we were all texting each other. We have group chats, and we're all texting each other and just saying how it could have been one of us. And we want to hear from you. Robin, can you give us a little bit of your background and why you're able to step up right now and speak, and what education that you can give and what empowerment you can give to other people? Give us your background. I know you have a military family as a history, and you believe in serving, and your daughter was one of those types of people. So I'd love to hear from you.
Okay. All right. So first off, I've realized recently that being at peace, what exactly does that mean? So I'm a broken person, right? I have a lot of unfinished business, just like Rose. Even through my broken, unfinished shell, that I was able to find peace in talking about my daughter, not being lazy, connecting to the Jewish community. For me, immersing myself back into my synagogue I just sort of took a step back and felt like I wanted to elevate my life also. Through my daughter's tragic loss, I was instantly comforted by people around the world. The day I heard of my daughter's death, before Atlanta knew, people from all over the world were messaging me. For instance, the UK, Brazil, Argentina, South Africa, Australia, and Israel. They knew because lone soldiers come from all over the world and fight for Israel. And I immediately felt like, oh my gosh, what other country gets supported like this? And this is global. This is bigger than I realized. I knew immediately this was going to be a big deal. So I was almost lifted up into the clouds with comfort. I was given strength because so many people from around the world I wasn't soliciting were doing acts of like saying prayer for my daughter or comforting me, and they were sending me the message that they were saying the prayers. They, giving me actual voice memos and stories about how my daughter impacted their children. So I was instantly aware that not only is this global and people around the world know, they're reaching out to me, they're doing actions themselves. My daughter wasn't, she did throughout her entire life so much for not just herself and not just her community, not just her family, but also like sticking up for the state of Israel and the Jewish nation. I saw how she struggled and didn't fit in, but still maintained a lot of Jewish values, even though it wasn't easy. And so it gave me strength right away that, like, if my daughter lives such an active life for good, I'm not going to sit by and be lazy myself. So what can I do? And I read her bat mitzvah speech multiple times. Her messages within that speech alone is a great guideline on ways you should line yourself up and try to discover what you can do. What kind of life story do you want to write? I believe in God, and I have faith, and I think we're temporarily here anyways. I don't think that our life stops once we leave here. So I think I just connect to God, and I'm trying to do more with my life than I was before, and I'm keeping her actively in my heart and my mouth and my mind because it's making a difference to other people.
Do you find that that was your daughter's mentality as well? She doesn't necessarily need to be in Israel, but she felt that showing up, maybe one extra soldier doesn't really make a difference, but the presence and the image of her being there actually makes a difference for everybody around, and the impact that you have. I remember I have friends when this first happened. I reached out to a lot of friends around in Israel that are fighting in Gaza or on the border, and I said, "Hey, like, just thinking of you." And they're like, "I never said this to you before, but you don't know how much it means to us that you actually came and served." And these were people, some of them I was friends with, some of them I was more acquaintance with. We were in the same unit, but that was the message. And that's really what a lone soldier, what your daughter, the emboldened and her image was to everybody else. And it sounds like she got that from you.
Well, it's definitely a combination of both David and I. We have different parenting styles, and the way that we express to our children is different, but it kind of fills each other's gaps in the way that's good. Definitely wasn't all me, but I think everybody's 50% genetics and 50% environment. I wasn't trying to shape her into a specific mold I had in my head. I saw certain gifts, I saw certain struggles, and I just sort of tried to give her tools and allow her to make a lot of her own decisions. As an example, when she was 2, she used to color on Shabbos, coloring papers. And I would tell her, Rose, I just want you to know, maybe coloring on Shabbos isn't the best thing to do. You might want to color before Shabbos and just play. We're really not supposed to color on Shabbos. But I didn't tell her, do not color, put that away. I just let her spend a year or two thinking about that, and she finally gave it up. So she understood, like, the value and that really we shouldn't be doing this, but maybe she came to it on her own through the guidance that, I would give to her. As far as one person mattering and fighting in the army, I asked her, I said before, Rose, you could die. You've done so much with your life. We have plans. Like, you really gonna give all that up potentially? And she said, Mom, if not me, it will be someone else. So she wasn't afraid to die for her country. She told her friends that. I don't know another person in my entire life who was so willing to put themselves out, but I think somehow Rose, maybe she knew her impact. Maybe she knew her exit prior to coming here. I don't know, but she seemed to have been driven towards doing what unfortunately ended her life. It has somehow cut into everybody's heart, at least in the Jewish nation. There are people who don't know about her.
You had mentioned before that there were some struggles that she had and the plans. I'm just wondering what kind of, to get to know Rose a little better from from your eyes, like what are the struggles that she had gone? You said she didn't really fit in. Was that here? Was that in Atlanta? Was that in Israel? And what were the plans that that she had, just to get to know her a little bit better?
When we were at an Orthodox preschool, she did have friends her whole life. So it wasn't, she didn't fit in completely as you would say, oh, this kid didn't have friends. That wasn't really the case. At the Orthodox preschool, maybe she was not a rabbi's daughter and wasn't like inside the big social circles. She was sort of not religious enough for a lot of the kids. Okay. But it was a beautiful, wonderful preschool. It did so much for her. I'm not talking bad about the preschool, but I am just saying she struggled with that. We end up at a modern Jewish day school. Rose is too religious. So here she's wearing sneas, and the kids don't dress like her and make fun of her, right? Even Jewish people making fun of another Jew. Like, this was something she struggled with, but she, at this time, before third grade, she was dressing sneas. She continued to dress sneas regardless of kids pressuring her. She did not speak Lashon Hara. She started observing that sensitively since 4-year-old. There's been examples throughout her life.
Which is talking about people. It's the evil mouth. It's bad mouthing people, talking behind people's back, gossiping, things like that.
Which is
correct.
Which is usually, especially for somebody in grade 4, a very difficult thing to restrain yourself from, even when you get to be 63.
Correct. So she would remove herself from many conversations where everybody would be laughing and not want to be a part of it. Rose would protect and defend people who were being made fun of. That includes when Jewish jokes are being told in her neighborhood. She would stand up, even physically, taking it physically. A 5-year difference. She could be 8 years old versus a 12-year-old boy. And she would physically whip him with a jump rope to get him to stop making fun of someone if he doesn't listen. So she did not take light of somebody getting made fun of. We apologized. We corrected the relationship. Everything's good. But yeah, she physically stood up for the Jewish nation when she was 9. The neighborhood was Jew jokes, and she went out with a knife and said, "Don't you ever say that again," because they wouldn't listen to her, and all the kids scattered. Rose comes home, and then mom comes and knocks on the door again. Oh, and I'll let me get my daughter to apologize, and then we'll come talk to you afterwards,
Really sorry.
Yeah.
Really sorry she came out with a knife.
How easy was it to get her to apologize? It was like, "I'm sorry," or was it, "Okay, Mom, I understand that I shouldn't bring a knife to school to threaten people, even if they deserve it"?
As soon as I brought her to the door, and both times I had to do this, there was a 12-year-old boy crying with a mother standing at the door. Rose apologized immediately, and I told both parents that we will come talk to you after we talk to Rose. Please give me a few minutes, because it was embarrassing. I didn't want to question an 8-year-old girl in front of a 12-year-old boy who's crying. So she's, again, not fitting in. She's standing up for her friend or the Jewish nation, and it doesn't matter if she's liked. So she continues this through her whole life. Keeping the Sabbath isn't easy when you go to public school. So that means no birthday parties, no dances, no, not all that stuff. You have to, pretty much everyone has to come here as the after party. Or her friends have to hang out with Rose on the weekends, or we have to walk to all the sports, miles and miles. It's not easy to cheerlead and wrestle on Saturday if you don't take the bus. So Rose would walk 6-7 miles to get to an event, and then back home, and then do Shabbos. So keeping Shabbos is not easy when you live she kept kosher. That separates you too. But, you know, it became easier for her to be vegan. And yeah, so she was an athlete and vegan, which is probably very difficult, but she knew how to get her protein sources. And,
we're a wrestling family too. We interviewed Olympic gold medalist Kendall Cross, and we have a few other world champions that are on this podcast. It's amazing. We wrestle. My brother still wrestles. He gets his butt kicked. He gets top 3, and for some reason, there's 2 people standing on the 3rd place because there's only 4 guys wrestling. So he always gets top 3. He's award winning, but that doesn't mean that he's winning many matches.
As a wrestling parent, I can relate. I mean, I've seen so many matches, and it's just really very boring.
Well, you'll understand. You'll understand this. Rose walked up to the wrestling coach and said, as a girl, I'd like to wrestle. He didn't take her serious, but he said on Saturday, we have a hydration test you have to pass before the season begins. So that, you know, you can't drink for a certain amount of time. You go get your hydration test done when you're super thirsty, I guess. Then you drink again, and there's some other kind of test after. So Rose and I are walking 5 miles. Coach doesn't expect her to show up. She's like, Mom, we're going to be late. I'm running. So she runs after not drinking for I don't know how long from the day before. Gets to the test. The coach can't believe she shows up. And Rose does the hydration test, joins the team. He thought immediately she's completely serious. She started training, and she ended up going to state. So 9 kids on the team. She wrestled against boys, made it to state. There were 38 players on the team. So
that's tough.
She was tough.
What would Rose say about the people who are scared right now to stand up and say they're Jewish?
Rose would say, you know, when you're standing before Hashem, we're all going to die. But do you want to be someone who was fearful to be Jewish or proud? And maybe it's a scary time to put the mezuzah on your door. But she would probably say that doesn't matter at a moment like this. What matters is you put the mezuzah on the door and that you have faith. I don't know. I don't know exactly what she would say.
It sounds like you do know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to think a little longer about it, but
sounds like that's exactly what she would say.
Where does this resilience come from? Because she sounds like a tough cookie.
And I'm sure that
and when I say
it's also you running with her to wrestling. It's not just her by herself. You're there supporting. Your husband is there supporting. I know what it's like to drive constantly and go to the wrestling, which is super boring.
She also, just so you know, like Rose could have finished a lot on her own. She didn't leave people behind. So in training at boot camp, there was an 8-hour physical test. So they were going to give up. Nobody could finish. And Rose put a soldier on her shoulders and squatted in front of everyone and said, if I can do this, we can finish. I don't know how, but that gave all of the people there enough energy to finish the test, which means they didn't have to restart the following day. And so, yes, Rose could have finished on her own, but she felt like she needed to pull everybody with her, and also was tired herself. But
it's amazing. Where did it come from? What was her moment that she said, you know, I'm going to be she's not a tough cookie is probably a tough boulder, which I didn't know boulders can get tougher. She's determined.
She knew what she wanted and she went after it. And got it. Didn't let anything stand in her way.
Where did she get that resilience from? And I know you have a military family. So can you talk about where she got that resilience from? And then also your family's history of being in the military and why she felt the military was so important and why you allowed her even to go to the military, even though you said you guide your kids, but that's a big decision.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Even if you would have said no, I don't think she would have listened to you anyway.
Probably not. So the conversation started around 5 when she said Israel's going to be her home. 8 when she decided at 18, I will join the army. So we had been having this, and she groomed us for a very long time. It wasn't just, hey, Ma, I'm in Israel. I joined the army. You know, it was not a surprise.
That's what I do.
Yeah, okay. A lot of people have done that, but I have spent every minute of her life communicating with her about life, about relationships, even like topics that you might wait till your kid is bat mitzvah age to discuss. I started early around kindergarten. So we were having a lot of deep conversations, and Rose learned probably to think and express feelings and ideas openly by my communications with her. Her father's also excellent. He's a lot more informative than I am. I'm emotional and spiritual, and her dad is, you know, intellectual also, you know, more so than me, has facts and, you know, everything, as well as spiritual. But as far as military goes, I have family who's been in America since before the revolution, so a long history of military in my family. I would say David's family, they're farmers. They work hard. They put out for each other, the community. My family's very community oriented and driven. So she saw continuously families that did for other people and helped the community. She wanted to give back. That's what she said. How am I going to give back? So she felt the first place was going to Israel. She identified with Israel as her own country. And because the Jewish nation matters to her, and she felt really she could do something. She also saw, like, physically throughout high school and middle school that she could push her limits. She wanted to see how strong she was, how far she could go. And she also taught her classmates alongside her so that they could do more for themselves as well. Physically training. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The resilience point, was there a time that she went through some obstacles? It sounds like when somebody called her Jew jokes, made fun of her, and then she went, you know what? I'm not going to be this little weak girl. I'm going to stand up, and I don't care who I'm going to stand up to. That sounds like one of her moments in her life that she really she took and she controlled. Was there something deeper that happened to her that allowed her to stand up for herself?
Yeah, I don't think she had the conversation you just had. You said she was questioning herself in ways. Rose, I think, saw there was a problem. People are making fun of a Jewish person or the Jewish nation, and she asked for them to stop, and they didn't. And she didn't know exactly what to do other than immediately do something about it with action. So she just jumped in to exactly how she was going to get them to stop. She didn't probably consider the dangers, the repercussions, the what ifs. She just went right to it. There was no time for her to question. It was a reaction. And it ended up working. Nobody got hurt. I mean, I would say 2 hurt. The boy doesn't have scars.
Life wasn't that sharp.
It doesn't matter. Those are scars. When you get beaten up by a little girl, because your daughter was not that tall, when you get beat up by a little girl,
you have to go crying to the mommy to get to apologize.
That's
right. Let me just say that it was the toughest kid in the neighborhood, the one who was the leader of the pack. She did not choose. She chose wisely. She made her point, and again, I think she was she didn't even care if she fit in. Oh, she didn't second guess because of herself. It was, I can do something about this, so I'm going to do this. And did it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
When I was in the Army, there were times that I decided, I don't fit in here. They made, my Hebrew wasn't good. And you feel always very, very alone and very, very lonely in life. And especially you grow up. For us, it was we were in a very wealthy town. We didn't have the finances behind us, so you feel kind of very different than everybody else. And then you do those things that define you in life, and that one is that you put in your resume, you put in your back pocket that's something I'm going to have for the rest of my life. And for me, I had an older brother who was very popular. People loved him. And I said, you know what? I don't want to be the shadow of my brother, even though we have a great relationship. We still speak every day. But I decided to go to the Army, and I decided to make a difference. And I felt like it made a difference. And that has been a trajectory of my life that was something different. I know that your daughter is going to be successful in heaven right now, because she's going to tell everybody that, hey, she's going to bring people with her. And she's going to carry people forward, and she's going to be speaking down and carrying the entire Jewish nation forward, and the entire people who need encouragement.
She definitely has a high place in the heavens, right?
100%. And
Yeah.
There's something that you're doing. You're living in her honor. What would you tell parents who are scared right now for their kids in the Army? And what would you tell parents that have unfortunately that have given the ultimate sacrifice?
For the parents who have lost, I would tell them, someone told me that Rosie's neshama visits more often when I'm happy and fulfilling my life. Okay? And so I really believe that. I really feel when I'm sad, and I get sad, and I do cry. But I really feel like almost like I'm alone at that moment. And so I keep telling myself that's something that's been very comforting to me. Somebody else also told me at Shiva, there's a concept, the amount of pain and sorrow that I'm feeling at this moment, there is 10 times the amount of joy waiting for me in this life. That was very comforting to me as well. And also that if I'm able to do something where I can help that my daughter's death was not in vain, then if it's going to be impactful as well as helpful and comforting to me, I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing.
I would say no matter what, your daughter's death was not in vain.
Correct.
It's still very impactful no matter what you do, but your daughter's death was not in vain.
And to the families who have soldiers actively fighting right now and serving, and people living in Israel or openly being Jewish, I would say to everyone that we chose the Torah. God chose all the nations and offered it to everyone. No one wanted it. We said yes. Okay, we're different. Rosie was different, first off. Second off, we became instant. It wasn't a long time that the Jewish nation became the Jewish nation. It was right away, and it wasn't natural. It was supernatural. So I also would recommend that people identify with, in the beginning, God created, period. Forget everything else. If you can't identify with anything else, just look at those words, read those words, think about them, and see if there's a way in your life you can identify with that. What is meaningful to you that you might, also, I recently learned the final mitzvah was to write a Torah scroll. And to me, that means, like Rose said, live a good life story. Write a good life story. So I think it's really important to connect to both of these concepts. Write a good life story. Find your weaknesses. Find your strengths. Use them and share them with others. And try to make it a better place in this world. And also recognize that God created the world in the beginning.
Beautiful.
So 2 things we want to just touch on. So we decided when I heard what happened on October 7th, I had a very tough day next day. And then I realized I need to get up and do. And I'm like your daughter. I do. I don't
Yeah.
think. My family always made fun of me. I live in Planet Yair, and think before you speak. And that wasn't something I said. I'm always going to live in my own world, and I'm always going to do before I think. It's just something I'm going to do. I live on my emotions, and I'm going to live
You have
with it.
come down a little bit from Planet
Right now, one of them is we are writing a Torah in Israel. We're currently writing it right now. It's going to be finished at the kibbutzim, Be'eri, Kfar Aza, one of them. And we're going to bring it back to New York to show a level of solidarity between the Jews that what happened in Be'eri is not an Israel. It's not an Israel problem. It's not an Israel massacre. It's a Jewish massacre, and that we're all united. We would love to invite you and your husband, and we'll fly you in for the Torah dedication over here, and to come and see it. It's going to be the largest Torah dedication in New York City history, in Manhattan history.
Wow.
That's what we're going to do. Now we'll see. We're doers. We're not thinkers. We're doers.
I was in Israel a couple of weeks ago, and I went to the Sofer. He's in Beit Shemesh. Like, hey, it's in half construction, up on the 4th floor with some. He's a Sofer just there writing it. I was able to write a letter. It was
amazing.
So we're going to do it around the massacre, around the anniversary date.
Okay, wonderful. Wow, that's amazing. And I mentioned how David and I would like parent a little different. So one thing, how is he handling after Rosie's death is a little different than me. I'm, going around talking about Rose. That's what's bringing me comfort. I'm not the one who says that's what everyone should be doing. It's just I had found that very helpful to others and myself. David is taking action different than me. He's been involved with the politics here in Georgia. There was a resolution made on the Senate House floor in Rosie's honor. It is going to support a bill he's trying to get passed with the legislature that essentially anti-Israel and anti-Semitic remarks that accompany destruction of property or a physical assault is going to be fallen under hate crime, okay? Which would make it a felony versus a misdemeanor. And the other thing, now Washington, D.C. David reached out to them. Let me rewind that and say that correctly. And now they're on board. So they're honoring Rose in February. We're trying to get a resolution made, and we're working on the resolution. The honor, she's going to be like the honor of the day in Washington, D.C. And maybe we can also, I think there's like 30 states already on board with some kind of resolution that has terrorism and anti-Semitism involved. So we're really trying, David's working very hard at trying to get exactly what I said to fall under the hate crime.
And that's really what this whole podcast is about. It's about being successful in everything that you do, and what you're defining is exactly what our brand and our message and our listeners like hearing. Resilient riches is not based off of money. We are financial people. We talk about money, but building riches is about showing that you can overcome obstacles. It is not easy to go out and speak, but you are becoming successful and you're building riches in everything that you're choosing to do. And your daughter did the exact same thing. She chose something and she was successful at it. There's a million obstacles and there's a million ways to say no. We used to have in our office when I first started in New Jersey, a big sign, reasons not to call. And what it really means is reasons not to be successful. Helen Keller died on that day. All these different. You
could always have an excuse to say no.
And you guys,
an excuse not to do something.
And you're building riches that will last not just a lifetime, but will echo for eternity. You are recreating history. I see you looking somewhere. Can you tell us what you're looking?
So this is one of Rosie's journals. I just want to give you an idea. She started writing something. It says, "My portrait is painted not of I alone, for this body is only a fraction of my being." So I think she was here existing for something greater than herself. This was written in maybe her sophomore year in high school, right? So she not just identified with some amazing things. I have journals after journals of amazing written work. She was a poet. She's just very profound. And I intend to share a lot of her written work.
So we'd love to, in Rosie's honor, I'm calling her Rosie now because she's my friend.
Yeah.
In Rosie's honor, we'd love to obviously have you come. We'll make sure that if you do want to go to Israel to write something in the actual Torah, if you want to come to Beirut, we'd love to host you there too. But the main thing is we also want to donate to a charity of your choice, $1,000 in her zchut, in her memory. Is there a charity that you've been involved with that you want us to give to?
Yeah, I would say Congregation Ariel here in Atlanta was her synagogue. Her rabbi came all the way out to the funeral and accompanied us. She was an artist, but she gave up her talent, like singing, dancing, speaking, drama, comedy, everything. She was extremely talented because of maybe not being able to do it on Shabbos, and maybe it's not so sneas. But on Saturday, she would go sing to all the women on Saturday at the Rebbitzins' home and things like that. So she continued that here in this community. So I think it would be wonderful to support the community where the rabbi who went all the way to Israel to be with her. And that's really, she got a lot of nourishment here, became, stronger because of this Jewish community. So that would be my choice.
And we'd love to do it. Robin, any last words that you want to say to our listeners? Any last message that you want to say to the people listening from around the world?
Yeah, I guess I would say it's important that we are human, and with our broken shell, like I mentioned earlier, amongst all the unfinished work we have, identifying with what strengths you have, and utilize the tools so you can share that with other people and make the world a better place. Believe in Hashem and figure out what can I do to love thy neighbor.
Robin, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. May your daughter, if you could say her Hebrew name.
Rose Lubin Bas Chaim David.
Rose Lubin Bas Chaim David has an Aliyah. She's already at the highest level of Shemayim, so there's of heaven. So I don't think she can get higher, but I would say her Aliyah can help bring other people that want to go higher and elevate them, because she's bringing them. She's carrying them with her. It doesn't matter if she's 110 pounds maximum. Max,
right.
Max doesn't matter. But
we appreciate you sharing and giving us some more insight into who she was and what she was all about.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Robin.